Okay, so welcome everyone. It's good to see you. So this week's topic is dealing with difficult situations, mostly situations that get us really, really stuck. And so today's topic is when nothing works. So so when you encounter difficult situations in your life, sometimes that very challenging, then you always have a few choices, right? So you can either change the situation. Is it possible to change it? Then do so. I encourage to change situations for the better if you can. To just say, okay, let go, forget it, I will do nothing about it, that's quite pointless. So if there is something you can do about it, do it. If it improves the situation, makes it better for all participants, do it. But then sometimes you can't change it. Then you still have a choice. You could either freak out about it, or you can relax. So we can always relax. This is always your choice. No matter what happens, you have the choice to receive it with relaxation and ease, if you can. And that requires, of course, training. Not everybody can directly receive difficult situations with ease. I certainly can't. There's situations that are out of my reach. I can't be relaxed and cool about it. I get hot and angry about situations. Happens. Yeah. Well, then there are situations that are easier for me now. Haven't been easy in the beginning. Now they're easier. So I notice there is some progression as well. So you know yourself, you know what's difficult for yourself, and you know if you can relax with it or not. And I would encourage you to train with it. Right? You have these mindfulness bells, for example, and each time you hear a bell, you remind yourself to be mindful. For example, to feel your breath, or to kind of feel the steps that you're making as you walk. Let difficult situations be such bells that remind you to come back to yourself. And of course, how to relax in difficult situations, particularly when you're stuck, when there's absolutely nothing that you can do. You can't move to the left or the right, forward or back. There's absolutely nothing you can do. Everything falls apart. And you can only watch, right? So in these situations, you want to, first of all, enter a state of silence, inner silence, which is very difficult. You need to be prepared for that. I'm not saying it's very easy to go into silence, particularly when things are really challenging. But if you are already familiar with inner silence, here meaning the absence of thoughts, the absence of discursive thinking, the absence of future and past making in your head. If that is not there, then the situation is usually much easier to deal with already. Then the whole complexity is out of it, the whole drama is out of it. The idea that you are going somewhere and what is going to happen to me, what is going to happen to my business, to my relationship, to whatever. That is out of the picture. Now there is just this moment. Then there's feelings, there's sounds, maybe the presence of another person. But at least most of the disturbance is gone. The narrator that tells the story of how it probably will unfold. Because we just don't know how it will unfold. There's no way to tell what will happen. Before I moved to Thailand, I was pretty scared. It was a big thing for me. I gave up everything in Switzerland and in Germany, in Europe, where I came from. I gave up everything, left everything behind, and moved to Thailand into an uncertain future. And so my mind went through all these possible scenarios of what could go wrong. I might end up in jail. I might end up maybe someone beating me up on the street randomly, whatever. All kinds of weird scenarios came through my mind of what might happen. Okay, you might be familiar with something like that. Maybe your mind does the same kind of thing, worrying about the future, of what might go wrong. And the mind can be very creative with that. And then I sit there with my flight tickets, really worried. And it doesn't make any difference to my future, but it makes a big difference to my presence. It makes it unbearable to be here because of possible scenarios. Why don't I pick scenarios that might be amazing, for example? Why go through horror movies in my head rather than maybe a nice movie? Things might go really nice. Who knows, right? But it's the same thing. We don't know. Will it be good? Will it be bad? We don't know. And this kind of reflection helps me to calm down within the storm a little bit. Say, okay, all right, I don't know what's going to happen. Anything could happen. So let me go into silence, because my thoughts will not make it good. And we have to really understand that before trouble hits, thoughts will not help you to get out of the painful situation. What helps you is quietude, availability, attention. That leads to creative solutions. That gives some space for intuition to arise of what you might do. But if your head is just filled with all kinds of scenarios and thoughts, it doesn't help. It's just an additional layer of stress on top of the stress that's already there. So this is always the first step. Try to come into silence. And you might need some convincing work to do with your mind. You need to convince your mind that it's very wise and skillful and clever to go into silence, to find a moment of silence. This is in a difficult situation, your mind will tell you anything but silence. Yeah, you need to figure this out now. You need to worry about this now. This situation is terrible. You need to find a way now. And so your mind, if you look at your mind, when it is in a challenging situation, it usually just spins around and around and around like crazy, like a dog trying to bite its own tail. This is not a solution, and we have to realize that clearly as it's going on. So look at your mind as it's worried. This is always kind of the first thing. Accept that it worries. Let it worry. Then there has to be some part of your mind that steps back a little bit and tells the worrying mind, okay, you can worry. I'm going to watch you worry. I'm going to watch you trying to find a way out. That's the first step out of the noise. Becoming aware of what's going on, rather than being completely lost in the noise. To be able to make that step in a difficult situation, you have to practice making that step when life is easygoing, when you're not challenged by really hard stuff. But maybe you have just like little things, like the famous example, someone cutting you off on the road, or somebody not doing what they should be doing. Yes. Someone taking their time in the mall, maybe someone taking their time in front of you, and you kind of have to pass through, and they don't let you pass through. They just take their time very slowly doing their thing. That's a bit of a challenge. Practice relaxing there. Small things, little things. Just being a little bit stressed, having too much work. Find moments in between where you take 3 deep breaths and actually train yourself to relax when it's difficult to relax. All the meditation doesn't mean anything if you're unable to relax when life gets a bit tougher. Meditation practice ideally prepares you to be able to cope with difficulties. You're able to kind of stay above the challenge, above the difficulty, above the pain. You're not drawn into it. That's the skill that you develop. You're kind of non-reactive. I don't really like the word because it suggests a little bit like you're cold or you're not engaged with things. That's not the case, but you're non-reactive here. It means you're cool. You're not steered up by events. Whatever happens, you're okay on the inside. You can still take care of things, but on the inside you're not consumed by events. Train that in small, tiny moments throughout your day-to-day activities. When you hear something that you don't like to hear, relax. Physically relax. Physically let go of stress. Take a deep breath, and as you breathe out, relax your whole body. Then come into presence. Listen to the sounds around you. Where are you right now? You're in a room, right? Become aware that you're in a room. How's your body like? What kind of posture is it in? How does it feel like? How's your emotional body like? How does that feel like? How's your breath? Is it refreshing, comfortable, easeful, stressful? Slow, fast? Is the out-breath longer than the in-breath? Or the other way around? So bring some awareness into what is happening right now. It's a call back into sanity, not into thinking, but into reality. Thinking has nothing to do with reality. As much as thoughts love to be valid and appreciated, they have nothing to do with the way things are. They're thoughts. Perceptions, ideas that we have learned throughout our life. For some people, their thoughts are serving them. For others, not really. Sometimes you might have thoughts that are very nice, that are very good for you, that are good for other people around you. Sometimes you might have thoughts that are very harmful, very negative. They're just thoughts. They're not ultimately valid or an ultimate truth. It's just a voice in your head. Like your parents or something like that. Your parents talking in your head. Telling you who you should be, how life should be, and so forth. And it makes it worse. If things go wrong, that voice almost surely makes things much worse than they are. You might find yourself that your voice says, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? But if that voice isn't there, you find yourself, oh, I'm just sitting in a room. There's nothing going to happen to me. I'm sitting in a room. And that's it. What's going to happen is not sure. I don't know what's going to happen. What I know is I'm sitting in a room. That is reality. Sanity. And the voice in your head, it wants to stay alive, so it will come with all kinds of reasons to go back into business. Yeah, but you have to figure this out. It's really important. If you're not doing anything about this, it will get only worse. You have to do something about it right now. Yeah, we have to do something, but worrying doesn't help. It never does. But worrying is completely pointless. It's based on fiction of what is presumably going to happen. Many times in your life you were going through scenarios that will happen in your head. And how did it turn out in reality? Different, right? It's always different. No matter what you think, it'll always be different. Even if you browse through past events, things that happened to you, you always see them in a different light. Constantly, slightly changing them each time you think about it again. It's unreliable. It's just thinking. So the value of silence is huge. Why silence? Because it gives you a base to operate from. It's a base of sanity, not a base of confusion. It is based on what is. And it receives what is exactly as it is. That's the ability of silence. It's like a mirror. It reflects what's in front of it as it is, without any judgments. Thinking would be like you watching yourself in the mirror, thinking about yourself. That's the mental reflection. A pure reflection would be just like the mirror. It just sees what's there. It doesn't make anything more or less out of it. It reflects it exactly as it is. Silence does that too. And if you can reflect the situation exactly as it is, you can see clearly whether there is something that you can do right now or not. And then you operate from what we call intuition. So first you surrender into silence. You give up. I can't move in any direction. I have no idea what to do. Thinking just makes it worse. So surrender. Stop trying. It's very counterintuitive to the talking mind, which says, no, you have to figure things out now. Stop. Sit down and work on silence. This is the one thing that in modern societies is mostly missing, the ability to, before we react, to step into quietude. To take time to see it from an unbiased angle. Just to be with it. Be with your feelings, be with the perceptions of that particular subject. Just be there. Not doing anything about it. No rush. What if you had 15 minutes left to live? What's the rush? What kind of difference would that make to the problem that you presumably have or will have? If you had 15 minutes more to live, would it make a difference? It probably would. Maybe it wouldn't worry you so much anymore. Maybe you figure out, it's not really worth worrying about this for the last 15 minutes that I have. And worrying wouldn't help anyways. I'm going to die. Here's another very convincing argument that I give my mind. If my mind says, what's going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen. I say, I tell you what's going to happen. You're going to die. This is what's going to happen. You will die. And then my mind is kind of like, oh, okay. Has no arguments left. And if it still has arguments left, I ask it a simple question. When will you die? It doesn't know. Could be maybe in 10 minutes. Is there anyone safe from dying in 10 minutes in this room? Do you feel that? It would make a huge difference if you felt it. With every fiber of your being, my life is going to end. Then you have a big choice. Relax or freak out. Your life will still end. You'll still lose everything you've been working for. You still will lose everything that's dear to you. No difference. Whether you go there worrying or relaxed, no difference. So this is a very convincing argument for my mind to be quiet. Because I will experience problems. I know that. There's nobody safe. We all will experience problems, difficulties, illness, death, sorrow, separation, loss, grief, worries. We will experience bad things. This is already sure. So relax. What's the other option? And as you get more and more relaxed, you enter a space of sanity inside, namely silence. You can act in better ways. The way I like to compare that is to a fighter in a boxing fight. If you have a plan, you have already lost. Try. If any of you guys are practicing Muay Thai or any martial arts, you try. Fight with a plan. First I go in with the right hook, then with the left uppercut. That no chance, right? You've already lost. You need to be super available when you're in the fight. You need to actually get out of your head. That's why it's nice. Martial arts is pretty nice. That's why there are Shaolin monks. There are Buddhist Chinese monks who are practicing martial arts. It's for that reason. It makes you super present. If you're not present, you feel it in your face. Very fast. So it's a feedback that you can get. Dancing is similar. It gives you feedback. If you're not present, if you're not with the dance, it's immediate feedback. Art, all these kind of things that bring us into the present moment. They provide this feedback, whether we're aligned with what we're doing or not. So it's very useful. And here's the value of silence. If you're out of your head, you're a very good fighter. You're very dangerous, in fact, for your opponent. If your opponent is in your head, if your opponent is in his or her head, they have already lost. It depends who is more present in the fight. And of course, training also important. Then you let the reflexes take over. That's why you have these 10,000 hours of training of just one thing until it's just automatic. You just can get out of your head and your training takes over in the ring. The same thing is true for life. Your meditation on the mat is your training. You train to relax, let go of stress and tension, and there's plenty. Particularly for a beginner, you will notice so much nervous energy in your body. Oh my God, how much longer, how much longer? There you go, that's your stress. Relax there. Relax anyways. Yeah, but I really want to scratch the itch. No, don't. Relax. Instead, now I want to move my body. No, don't. Relax instead. It's the most basic training. Learning to sit still. And the more still you become, the more composed you become inside. The more composed you become, the more clearly you can see what's going on. That's your advantage. Ajahn Brahm gives this example of a person being lost in the jungle. If you were lost in the jungle, like let's say the Amazon jungle, it's a huge jungle. Now what would you do? You're totally lost, you're moving in circles around and around, and you want to get out of the jungle. What do? Any idea?
Stop moving.
Start moving or stop? Stop moving. Okay. Will that get you out of the jungle? Any other ideas? What could you do? Exactly. That's what it is. Find a tree or a high point, a hill, a tree, to see where you are, right? That's what silence is in difficult situations. That's your tree. You're totally lost in the thicket of your thoughts and your views and your perceptions and assumptions and whatever. You need to get up on a tree, particularly in tough moments. There's a Japanese Zen master who said, you should meditate each day for 30 minutes. Unless you're super busy, then meditate for an hour. Or unless you have no time, then meditate for 1 hour. Because if you find yourself having no time, you desperately need to make some time for what's meaningful. It's very important. For me, I tend to, when I'm very stressed, there's lots of projects going on, there's a lot of things that I need to do, then my meditation practice tends to kind of get into the background. So I've learned from that in the past. Now I up the meditation practice, particularly in stressful times. Stress levels are going down. There's things that are more important. And if I'm not operating properly, everything I do is spoiled, is stained already. There's no use in me doing things stressful, but doing them for 50%, with 50% of quality, everything. But get a lot of things done. But everything that I do is just 50%. Who benefits from that? Nobody does. So instead of trying to do 20 things 50% each, I decide to do 10 things, but 100%. And the time that I have now left, I use for calming myself down, relaxing, coming back to center. That is not given, it's going to be really tough. And sure, I might get a lot of work done, and the price I pay is burnout. And then I'm forced to stop. Health just collapses. And then what I have done doesn't matter. What matters then is my health. So make time for silence, particularly when times are tough. When it feels to your mind like, no, you got to figure this one out. Get up on a tree. This is where you need it most. And maybe you need to take a few more circles in the jungle before you decide to get up on a tree. That's the nice thing about suffering. It makes your views straight. Some people have to suffer a bit more before they decide to take proper action. Not just avoiding action, but an action that actually works. Like getting up on a tree, seeing where you are. That's intuition. Then you operate from a deeper sense of knowing. You operate from your gut, not from your head. You can still use your head to figure out things pertaining to the head. There are things in life that you need to figure out with logic and thinking and planning and all that. Then there are things you need to figure out with your heart, where you need to have emotional wisdom. And then there are things you need to figure out with your gut, your intuition, intuitively, from silence. And all levels are meaningful. If there's something you can do, do it. Nothing you can do, find a vantage point. Relax, enter silence. So, these are the 3 points: intuition, surrender, and silence. Make them operate when things don't work anymore. And please remember, it's okay for things not to work. It's part of life. Sometimes you lose everything. Sometimes things that you want don't work the way you want. It's part of life. Relax. You never know what's the result of that. Okay?